Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this video is going to be a champion guide for Tayrel, so let's get into it. Alrighty, Tayrel is one of the most famous champions in Raid Shadow Legends because he is very widely used, and basically everyone who gets him invests in him and develops him, and he's one of the more overall viable champions with utility in many different areas of the game. So I will go ahead and pull him up here. He's a high elf, and right here, this defense, epic, magic affinity. So as for all of my champion guides, I will have an infographic down in the video description that you can kind of pull up just to see the masteries that I am currently using on the character and kind of the optimal, sets. And then grades, I gave a campaign a B. He is, okay at that campaign, but probably not someone you're going to use to like speed farm the campaign. And then clan boss, he is incredible for reasons that we will go over in a bit. Arena, he's okay, he's pretty good, but not god tier or anything. And then dungeons, he is incredible and usable in basically every single one of them. Not all, but he's just very generally useful in most of them. Alrighty. So as we go over Tayrel here, we've got an A1 that attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 40% chance of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Damage inflicted is proportional to defense. This is one of the best A1s in the game because it's got a really good chance to place a 50%, which is the big version of a decreased attack, which is one of the best abilities in the game, is 50% decreased attack. It's good everywhere. It's just gonna help your team survive really well, and it's basically mandatory for the end game in both dungeons and the clan boss. So to have that on an A1 that attacks 2 times is absolutely incredible. An A2 is an AoE that has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. If the target is under a damage attack debuff already, it will place a sleep debuff for 1 turn, and again, damage is proportional to defense. So, not only does Tayrel place a decreased attack debuff, he also places the big version, which is 60% decreased defense debuff. So, 2 of the best debuffs in the game, decreased defense and decreased attack, he is going to place, and that's why he pairs so well for the clan boss and the dungeon, because he's not only going to help your team sustain, he's going to help your team do more damage. The A3 is preemptive strike. It's going to attack 1 enemy, decrease the target's turn meter by 50%. If the attack fully depletes the turn meter, it will place a stun debuff for 2 turns, and again, damage is proportional to defense. This ability hits like a truck. It's on a big cooldown, 4 turns, but it does hit very hard, like double any of his other abilities. So for whatever reason, preemptive strike hits very hard, and you've also got the bonus in like the arena and the beginning stages of trash, where if you deplete the turn meter fully, it will place a stun. But this can also be very clutch in a lot of dungeons. It doesn't work against the clan boss, and I guess it could be good in the arena too because it hits hard, it manipulates turn meter, and it can possibly stun. So a pretty decent ability for the arena there as well. And then for the aura, we've got an increased ally defense in all battles by 25%. Generally auras that are all battles are going to be the best, obviously, because it means they can be used in the clan boss if need be. The only auras that work versus the clan boss are ones that say all battles. A lot of people think if it says dungeons, it will work against the clan boss, but it won't. It has to say all battles. There's no like clan boss specific auras, so it has to say all battles in order to work in that scenario. And increased allied defense in all battles is a pretty good aura. Defense is kind of, defense characters are usually very viable in the end game and good against the clan boss and the higher level dungeons. So, on top of Tayrel having an amazing kit, he's got a really good aura to boot. That's why he's just so generally useful and used by so many different people. As we look at the stats here, we can see that Tayrel is, prioritized around defense. He's got a really good defense score, and then his speed is decent. It's 95. Generally, you know, speed that's above like 96, 97 is going to be good. Above 100 is excellent. And then speed that's like 93 or below is usually bad. And if it's under 90, it's really bad. So Tayrel's speed is decent, and he is obviously a defense character, so he will pair well with defense sets. Now let's go ahead and pull up my Tayrel. Okay, so for my Tayrel, there's a few different ways you can build your Tayrel. You can either go like 4 pieces of speed and 2 pieces of defense, or, you know, 4 pieces of defense, 2 pieces of speed. I had, you know, a couple really good immortal pieces that I wanted to use, and I wanted him to have, you know, a little bit more sustain, because I do use my Lord Champ for it a lot, which, you know, pairs well with the immortal set. So I did give him a couple pieces of immortal, but you can definitely build yours with 4 speed and 2 defense, or 4 defense and 2 speed, or sprinkle in a couple immortal pieces or HP pieces if you need, you know, that little bit of extra HP. So yeah, that's kind of the route that I went, but I may transition when I find better, you know, some more better speed pieces or defense pieces. I may swap out those immortal pieces to get it, you know, just a little bit more optimal and get the defense score or speed score up a little bit. As far as main stats on the gloves, we can either go crit rate or defense. You know, he will hit pretty hard, especially with the preemptive strike if you give him crit rate. But if you're struggling with defense, you can, or struggling with sustain, I should say, you can also go defense as the main stat here. For the chest, you know, usually you want attack or HP, but on defense characters, it's really good to get defense %. So accuracy is also very important on Tayrel. So we would like to get defense with accuracy and speed substats on the armor. Boots, we're almost always going to want to go speed, and then we're going to want defense, accuracy, stuff like that as the substats. You know, so for general stats, we're going to usually want to get around 200 accuracy to make him like endgame viable. Obviously, the higher the better, because a lot of his utility comes from placing those debuffs. So, you know, it depends on the clan boss you're fighting. If you're not in the end game yet, like if you're not fighting Nightmare, you can definitely, you know, just get him up to like 120, 140, 160 accuracy. But once you get to the very end game, like level 20 dungeons and Nightmare clan boss, you're going to want to get to like that 200 to 230 range, just so he can, you know, get that consistent value of landing those debuffs. So the jewelry, obviously, you're going to want an accuracy banner for sure. And then, you know, you can either go for sustain or crit damage here. It kind of just depends on how well your Tayrel is surviving. Same thing with the ring. You know, you're going to probably want defense as the main stat, or, you know, HP for sustain. It just kind of, but he does pair well with defense rings. And actually, what's funny is I would show you, you know, me using my Tayrel against the clan boss, because he is very good against the clan boss, but I actually can't. So we killed all of the clan bosses today before I was able to, you know, get to a point where I'm doing the video today. So yeah, can't do that, but I will show you me using my Tayrel in a Dragon 20. Dragon is a very popular, you know, level to farm because it's accuracy, speed, lifesteal, you know, some good sets. Stalwart can even be decent in the end game. But, you know, normally people are going to farm Dragon for accuracy, speed, and lifesteal. So a pretty popular dungeon, and I will show you kind of Tayrel in the end game Dragon 20 farming. We've got our champ for it for sustain and decrease attack and accuracy. We've got our Tayrel for obviously all of the utility that I just covered. Apothecary for speed and clutch heals. Bad L for, you know, debuffs to do damage, and also the, you know, massive sustain healing. And then Ignatius to help us get through the trash with those HP burns. And he's also, you know, a defense character, so he can sustain pretty well against the dragon. If you try to use like a Cold Heart or something in Dragon 20, I find that she's just way too squishy. I get my Cold Heart with like 35,000 HP and she just falls over. You know, against the Horadin that they have in the trash mobs, they just walk up one-shot her. So, you know, I just can't get her defense high enough. So, you know, I might be able to play around with that a little bit, but for now it's easier to just use this party and, you know, farm the dragon that way. So we'll see our Tayrel is down on the bottom right, and there was the preemptive strike, so you get to see that in action. all those, you know, constant HP burns are from the Ignatius, is actually what I learned in my video. I've always called him Ignatius, but people love to correct me on my pronunciations, which is great, and now I know that it is actually Ignatius. Or, wow. I'm so used to saying it that way. It's actually Ignatius. So I'm probably saying Tayrel wrong as well. It's probably Tayrel or something, but yeah, Tayrel was what I say, and we're going to go with that. So I expect this Dragon 20 to probably take about 4.5 to 5 minutes. The end game, and we see the Singing Steel ability there from Tayrel. That is his AoE ability. And, you know, normally defense characters are best in the end game dungeons because the attack champions just, it's too hard to keep them alive. You know, for defense characters, the defense stat is buffing their defense and their damage. Whereas the attack characters, the attack is buffing their damage, but it's not helping them sustain. So it can be very hard to keep your damage characters like your Kale and your Coldheart alive long enough to get value out of them, which is why sustain characters that place debuffs are kind of more widely used in the end game of dungeons. So now we got to the dragon in under 2 minutes, which is, you know, decent for Dragon 20. And, you know, now we'll see our Tayrel in action here and see that he is definitely viable in the end game of dungeons. And that's why he is so popular, because he's also very good against the clan boss, which I would have showed you if I was able to. The dragon is basically just a DPS race. You're trying to, especially when the dragon inhales and fills up that purple bar, you want to be able to kill that before his turn meter fills up, because then he's going to do that huge AoE attack that hits really hard and makes it very tough to defeat him. So very important to kind of, you know, bring a good amount of damage, or you can just, you know, play the super sustain style, which is what I kind of do. I have a ton of HP, a ton of heals. Bad L removes debuffs, so I can just kind of sit here and sustain what he does and not really have to worry about dying. Because I also use, you know, my damage dealers are heavy sustain, like Ignatius and Tayrel. And, you know, I forgot to do it while I was in the champion screen, but I will pull up the masteries really quick and go over that tab before I end the video. So, and also down in the video description, you can see a picture of the masteries that I currently use on Tayrel. And this one actually went pretty well. I thought it would be like 4.5 or 5 minutes, but it looks like it's going to be like 4:05 or something. And there we go. There is the Dragon 20 with Tayrel. And we don't really need this. So now let's go back to champions and go over the masteries for Tayrel. Alrighty, so you might not be able to see it because of my webcam, but I went with the War Master Tier 6 Mastery because we do use him against the clan boss, and you know, that means we're gonna want War Master because he doesn't, his A1, if it attacked 3 times, we might go with Giant Slayer, but with his A1, we definitely want to go War Master. And, you know, then, you know, we obviously want Master Hexer. Just a lot of his value is tied to his ability to land those debuffs. So we're gonna want to go down the accuracy route and get Master Hexer. And then the rest is kind of self-explanatory that I will let you kind of go over and pull up. You know, down in the video description, there's a picture, and you can kind of pull that up when you're planning out your Tayrel. But also, you know, when you do build your characters, you do want to like read stuff and kind of go over them, you know, yourself, and not just blindly follow someone else's route, because sometimes you're gonna prioritize different things or want value in certain situations. So it's a general guideline to go over masteries, but you do still want to kind of think for yourself and read them over. But yeah, that's going to kind of do it for this video, you know, about Tayrel. And if you have any questions, drop it down in the comments. I'll do my best to help you out. So as always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.